Well, hello everyone. Tonight we have a 2009 Mitsubishi. I guess it's a Lancer by the looks of it. Let's have a look back here. It was brought here because the battery's going dead. Customer says if he leaves it sitting for a couple of days, it'll be stone dead. He's changed the battery and recharged the battery a couple of times. So we're going to check this thing for a parasitic draw. I'll bring you along. So I've separated to two ground cables here, and I've got a amp clamp, and I'm going to quickly see if I can see a current draw on the two negative cables. I've got 0.042. Let's try and focus in on that. 0.04, 40 milliamps on that cable, and on this cable I've got 0.005, so roughly 45 milliamps total. 0.045 and roughly 10, so around 50 milliamps. Now that shouldn't kill the battery in 2 days. We're going to set it up with a disconnect switch here and check it that way. So I put a master disconnect switch in here in series between the negative cable and the battery, and what that'll allow me to do, I've got it on now, is I'm going to start the vehicle and I'm going to put an actual ammeter across the two posts after I shut it off, and take the keys out of the ignition and see what the parasitic draw is with the graphing multimeter. So I've just shut the vehicle off, taken the keys out of the ignition. I haven't locked the doors or anything, and I've got the ammeter set up in series in here, and I'm going to turn off the disconnect switch, which will instantly put the current through the meter. Well, 0.06. .45 milliamps, which was exactly what the amp clamp was suggesting. 45 milliamps will not kill the battery in 2 days. Not in my opinion. Most manufacturers will allow 50, and it's on the verge, so unless there's something that comes back on after it sits, this battery should not be going dead. Not with this current draw. Now you see the little pulses here? Let's change the time base. See the little pulses? That's, believe it or not, see the blinking blue light of the aftermarket alarm system or the aftermarket car starter? That's what's causing those. Well, 45 milliamps doesn't create a draw enough to kill a battery. Let's compare it to this amp clamp on the battery cable. Let's put it on here. Zero it. Slip it over the battery cable, and it reads 45 milliamps. Actually, that one reads 43, 42, 43, and this one reads 41, 42, 43. Well, I'm going to leave this thing sitting in here. I'll hook up AC power to this meter so it can sit and stay on all night, and we're going to see if anything happens over the course of this evening. So I turned the disconnect switch on, and I locked the doors, basically to arm any alarm system, and now I see the draw is over 100 milliamps. Let's see what we got. 200, 500. Okay, so we got 650 milliamps draw. That was after locking the doors. With the doors unlocked, the draw was under 50, which the factory says is acceptable. Now 650 milliamps, that's definitely going to kill the battery in a couple days. Put that into perspective, that's, well, over half an amp. But we got to wait now for the modules to go to sleep. Some kind of electrical activity going on. I just checked for TSBs and case histories. There's a couple of TSBs from the manufacturer warning about things like low jacks and aftermarket accessories installed, and this vehicle does have an aftermarket starter system in it. They also mention 50 milliamps as being an acceptable target. So I wonder what's on now. That, of course, we can't condemn it. We got to give it at least a half an hour, 45 minutes for the modules to go to sleep. So as you can see, after about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, it dropped to 0.043. We can change the range now, which should be 43 milliamps like we had before. So they've had to wait for the modules to go to sleep. And we're within specs, so I'm not sure what's killing this battery. Let's look at case histories. So I'm on Identifix, and I'm doing a keyword search for battery drain, and see what comes up. As I mentioned, there were some, hey look, Pine Hollow's got an Acura battery draw. Check this first. I watched that video the other day. Regarding this Lancer here, there's TSBs on it for aftermarket accessories, but I like to look at what's common here, and you notice Bluetooth module is common. I'm not sure if this has got that feature in it, but let's have a look at this case here. Check the amperage draw by putting an ammeter in series with the battery negative cable. Install a jumper in parallel, let the vehicle sit for that way for 45 minutes, then remove the jumper and read the draw. Well, I put a disconnect switch in there and turned it on, and then put the ammeter in parallel and turn the disconnect switch off, which opens the circuit and passes the current through the meters. That way you don't get a spike. You don't get the spike of exceeding 10 amps. That ammeter has a 10 amp max range. Up to 50 milliamps is normal. Well, I got 45, 43, 42. Well, we'll do a little bit more research. I'm going to leave this thing sitting all night and let it record. I've got AC power hooked to the Vantage Pro, so I can do that. And the meter won't shut off. I'm going to let it record all night and see what happens. See if anything turns on in the middle of the night. So I set the meter up to read up to 500 milliamps. And I reset the min-max counters on here. Reset this right here, and it resets the amperage internal minimum and maximum. So the minimum is 40 and the maximum is 60, but it's averaging about 40 to 45. So we're going to leave it sitting like this. As I said, I got AC power connected to this so it won't go dead. And it's going to be recording all night. I'll come out in the morning on the way to work and have a look at what the min-max was overnight. Well, here's something interesting. This thing has been sitting for about a half an hour, and I had reset the min-max on here, and I see that it spiked up to 687? Yeah, 687 milliamps at some point. I'm going to replay this recording. So I'm rewinding the recording here, and you can see that it spiked well over 500 milliamps because that's what I got the scale on, and it lasted for several seconds. Wow. Each one of these button pushes is one screen. I think the screen's 5 seconds. Let's see how far I have to go back to get it. There we go. So you can see something turned on in the vehicle. Let's drop cursors on here. That's not what I wanted. So you can see where cursor number 2 is, even though it's off the screen at 639 milliamps. Wow, that's interesting. I wonder if it is that hands-free module that's causing that Bluetooth module. Found lots of cases of that on Identifix. I've discussed this with the customer. I'm going to reset this and see if it comes back on again for tomorrow morning. Okay, so I changed it to 1 amp and I reset the min-max, and the minimum's 40 and the maximum 62 milliamps. Now we're not getting much of a spike anymore, but I want to see what happens. I'm going to let it sit for tonight and see what happens. So here we are the next morning, and we can see that during the course of the evening it did go up to 686 milliamps. So I'm going to freeze this. And I'm going to try and go back, see if I can see that. I had set it up for recording a 5-minute time base. There's one. There's another one spiked on. Oh, look at that. That was like 10 minutes it was on. Because one screen is 5 minutes. Let's drop cursors on here. Yep, 670 milliamps. So something's turned on for 10 minutes a couple of times. Okay, we're gonna try and disconnect that Bluetooth module and see what happens.